Good morning, you guys. It's your boy Bill Mahari here, represent Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the entire basketball community. If you want more basketball content, tune in to Basketball Conversations every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. This is where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. Now, this happened, during the weekend, and I'm going to start moving my morning historical perspective from 8 to 10 a.m. to make sure that you guys get the videos, bright and early so you guys will be aware of of my videos. But this occurred, during the weekend, and we want to talk about, one of the greatest, most versatile, 6'10" guys in the history of basketball. And the guy that I'm going to be talking about is Clifford Robinson, known as Uncle Cliffy. He played 18 seasons in the NBA, standing basically at 6'10", basically standing around at 6 feet 10 inches and weighing about 220 to 225. And this was a guy that was pretty much one of the most versatile, players that you could ever find in the history of NBA basketball. Um, this was the kind of guy that basically stood with great, endurance, but also with longevity. Okay, he rarely missed a lot of games throughout his entire career. He basically played 80. He didn't miss a game until 1995. He played his first 6 years in the NBA. He played his first 5 years in the league. You know, playing all 82 games, which is absolutely remarkable. And the thing that I will remember about what Clifford Robinson was, is that he was a 6'10" guy, but he was very versatile. And he was a guy that you could put in at the small forward, power forward, and center position, and he would create a lot of matchup nightmares. You know what I'm saying? Because he could shoot the ball, he could post you up, he could attack the paint and finish, and he was a very underrated defender too. He could block shots, he could play one-on-one defense. He's a very good help defender, and he provided a lot of those things at a time where the NBA, wasn't looking for a 6'10" guy to stretch the floor. Now, I did listen to Two Raw's video during the weekend when I was working. Um, I agree with him on this. If he were playing in today's NBA, considering that, how much the NBA uh, utilizes the 3-point line more efficiently and encourages the big men to shoot the ball, he would average at least 20 to 25 points a game from my standards. Now, his highest total was 21.3 in 1994-95 with the Portland Trailblazers. Okay. And he had a 3 year stretch in Portland from 94 to 96 where he averaged 21 and a half points per game. Just efficient, offense. You know what I mean? But the way he started out his basketball career, he basically grew up pretty much in Buffalo, New York, and attended the University of Connecticut, and he was one of the first true stars for Connecticut. You know what I'm saying? Because that was at the time when Jim Calhoun, basically took over the UConn program, and there were a lot of lean years, but right up until 1990 when they made their first trip to the Elite Eight. But Clifford Robinson was one of his first true stars on that team, and he was credited to helping building the blocks of that UConn program and becoming one of the true blue bloods of college basketball when they basically won national championships in 1999, 2004, was it 2011 and also in 2000 was it 2014? Yeah, 2014. I mean, you look at that period of time. Clifford Robinson was the main, building blocks to that team. And Jim Calhoun also mentioned the fact that without Clifford Robinson, there was no UConn basketball, and definitely so. I definitely agree with that. You know what I'm saying? He pretty much said, and quote, he averaged 5 points as a freshman, and I remember I told him, you have two choices. I can kick you out if you're gonna keep doing what you do, or I'm gonna watch you play a lot of years in the NBA. And he chose the other option, which is actually showing him what he can do in the NBA. So, but when he basically entered the NBA, he was basically selected in the second round with 36 overall pick by the Portland Trailblazers, and he was joining on the team that pretty much went to the finals 2 out of 3 years. Um, that team with Terry Porter, Hall of Famer Clyde Drexler, Jerome Kersey, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth, Danny Ainge, um, with Clifford himself there too. But also you had Drazen Petrovic there. That was also a reserve in that 1988, 89, 90 team. And the sad part is that there's 4 players. There's actually now you have to out 4 players from that team that have tragically died. Drazen Petrovic in 1993 with the infamous car accident. You see, the thing with Drazen is that Drazen was playing a bench role. He was a really good player, but he was not a fit for Portland. And when he was traded to New Jersey, he was flourishing into one of the league's top scorers. And he was entering his prime years until he was tragically killed in the car crash in Germany. And also Kevin Duckworth also tragically died there too. I just want to make sure, just real quick. Um, I remember Kevin Duckworth, basically died, due to heart related issues. I remember that he, was going through a lot of, health related issues, and unfortunately he died of heart failure in 2008. In basically in Oregon too. He basically was collapsed in his hotel room, and they tried to revive him, but it was pretty much too late. And Jerome, and he died basically at the age of Duckworth basically died at the age of 44. Now, Jerome Kersey's death was pretty much an unexpected one because he died at the age of 52. Um, he pretty much died because he had basically had a blood clot that basically traveled through his lung, causing a pulmonary embolism. And it basically was the blood clot that traveled through his legs up to his lungs. And before his death, Kersey underwent knee surgery, and I think because of that knee surgery and the complications behind it, that may have led to his death, but it's not entirely certain. But yeah, you had 3 of those players, you know, tragically dying of 2 of them by health related circumstances and one by a tragic car accident, and now you add Clifford Robinson, to the list. Now, his family did announce his cause of death, and it was caused by lymphoma, which is basically a cancer that begins in an infection fighting cells involved in the immune system, which are cells that start in the lymph nodes, the spleen, and the thymus and the bone area, and travels to other parts of your body. And when that happens, it pretty much affects your entire immune system because you're not able to fight off any illnesses, and you know you have to go. You take on radiation, chemotherapy, and he was going through a lot of health problems over the years, leading up to his death. But to go back to his Portland days, he was pretty much a 6 man. People in Portland remember him for wearing the famous headband before he went out to the floor. I can remember a lot of the Portland fans at the Memorial Coliseum wearing those headbands. And the reason why he wore the headband early on in his career was because he when he was a kid, he had a bad haircut and he didn't want to play basketball with a bad haircut, so he pretty much poured the headband on, just a way to cover it up, and it became a fan favorite thing in Portland. And when he started out his career in Portland, okay, he was pretty much a 6 man role, but he was doing a lot of good stuff. He was basically in the first 3 years, he was averaging nearly 12 points a game in those first 3 years. But then as the team, transitioned from those finals teams, as Drexler ended up being traded, as Jerome Kersey, declined, as Buck Williams began to decline, and Kevin Duckworth's, weight issues were pretty much too much for him to deal with. That's when you saw more of Clifford Robinson's more complete game. I remember there was one game in '93 where he had 42 points against Karl Malone, and while Malone still scored 40 points, I mean, he had the ability to stretch the floor to shooting the ball, but also he can take it to the basket and finish there too. He was a very aggressive finisher, and it's surprising to me that he only made one All-Star team in 1994. I think he could. I think he should have been like at least a 5-time to 6-time All-Star because of the versatility this guy provides. Now, he was very well known for. He wasn't known for his 3-point shooting early on, but when the NBA moved the line forward a bit in 94, 95 is when you saw more of his 3-point shooting skyrocketed. It skyrocketed for 90 in the beginning of 95 37% from 3-point range, and continued from 37, 34 to 32% in the next couple of years. So he was pretty much a guy that really benefited from basically the basically from the modified version of the 3-point line. But his best years came ahead when he basically signed with the Phoenix Suns as a free agent in 1997, and this is where he really reached at his peak. Um, he was playing for a fast-paced, run and gun team with the Phoenix Suns with Jason Kidd, with Rex Chapman, and then later on with Penny Hardaway and Sean Marion. And he really much flourished in that system. And I remembered back in 2000, um, he had a 50-point game, and he was probably what, the second or third oldest player. I think he was maybe the second or third oldest player in NBA history to score 50 points in a game. And at that time in 2000, he was basically 33 years old, and he was averaging 18 and a half points per game. You know what I mean? This guy was proven even at his advanced age that he was still could put up a lot of efficient scoring. You know what I mean? And he was well respected by the NBA, by a lot of his peers in the league. They basically called him Uncle Cliffy because he would basically do, subtle jokes here and there. He wasn't the guy that was going to cross the line with anybody, but, he was the guy that, basically was so durable and so versatile that every team that he played for, he pretty much made an impact for them. And I think he only missed the playoffs only one time in his career, I believe. He played at least 3-4 seasons with Phoenix, two more with Detroit, and basically helped out Detroit become one of the league's best defenses, along with Ben Wallace, before they became the NBA champions that they were in 2004. Then he played for New Jersey for 3 more years, and then finished his career with Golden State. And then he pretty much played one season in Golden State before eventually retiring. Um, Certainly, he was one of the greatest versatile players, in the game. Um, there wasn't much of him, doing any stuff, any troubles he had, off the court. Um, I know that Clifford Robinson, was did participated in Survivor in 2013. Um, he was pretty much participated there too, but he the funny thing was is that he tried to cover his identity, and eventually one of the contestants in the game, finally recognized who he was and what his career was back in the days in the NBA. So, it's just little funny stuff there. So it wasn't not like serious troubles or anything like that. But he did had a long string of health issues. Over the last 3 years, he had a stroke back in March of 2017 that pretty much left him paralyzed on the left side of his body. But he was able to, regain some of his functions on that left side of his arm and his legs, but he never really recovered from that. And then, more of the same health issues came into play, you know, later on in his life. There was also reports that I didn't know of that he's also suffered a brain hemorrhage back in 2018, though too, which is I knew about the stroke, but I didn't know he had a brain hemorrhage back in 2018. So there you go. Um, Also, he was pretty much a guy that was an advocate for using medical marijuana to relieve pain. You know what I mean? He was one of those guys that was pretty much an advocate for using uh, medical marijuana for basically for pain and basically for medical reasons. So he was a huge advocate for that. Um, he pretty much was the kind of guy that, was an advocate for, in the legalization of marijuana, and basically was supporting efforts to reform, cannabis laws in both Oregon and Connecticut there too. So he was really a guy that used cannabis to basically help relieve pain and anxiety. You know what I mean? And he was hugely a huge influence for that. But unfortunately, he died during the weekend. You know, on Saturday, he died of basically, like I said, with lymphoma. You know what I mean? A disease that basically starts in the lymph noodles and it's basically spread through his key organs. So, it's a very, very tragic thing. We lost a lot of good people in the NBA, man, this season, starting with David Stern, the old commissioner, the loss of Kobe Bryant, Wes Unseld, Jerry Sloan, and now you got it. Now you add Clifford Robinson into the list. So it's been a really tough year for the NBA. But I just wanted to give my tribute and my respects to one of the greatest versatile players that has ever played in the game, and he was very versatile, very durable, and he was a class personified person. There was nothing. There's not a lot of bad things you can pretty much say about Clifford Robinson and what a kind of great guy he was and what a good player he was. And I think that he would have flourished in today's basketball. I think he would have had. I think he would have been a first or second option on any team, considering his skill set and what he was able to bring. You know what I mean? So rest in peace to Uncle Cliffy, and also R.I.P. to uh, to Kevin Duckworth and Jerome Kersey, and also the Drazen Petrovic. Four players from that 89-90 Portland Trailblazer team have all tragically lost their lives. So, RIP to Clifford Robinson. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section.